for commercial development. For residential development, it's type 2.
Yeah.
So it'll be administrative.
Well, even with 6 acres?
Yeah, the
It's a
new
long story. I'll talk about it in our, in the department report.
Okay, all right.
state, we got some new rules.
Joy. All right, any other question? Yes, Commissioner Bennett.
Just a quick record-keeping question. Is the Exhibit Q that you reference, the neighbor letter, is that the one we got an email about that is actually the same as Exhibit O?
No, so it was a mistake. So the last one I sent is the correct one. So I knew we received another one, but this morning I sent one that was the previous one. I was able to track down the correct one and get it in there. So the Exhibit Q is a new one.
Okay.
So we have two neighbor letters.
All my emails are correct.
Two neighbor
Okay.
letters total.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Do any other commissioners have questions of staff? All right, thank you. Let us open the public hearing and invite the applicant or their agent to come down and speak on this.
Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Mike, hey, Mike, can you tap the mic? Thank you.
I was yelling, though, I think.
Could you repeat your intro just for the record, please?
I'm Scott Sinner Consulting, Inc., 4401 San Juan Drive, Medford, Oregon, representing the applicant today. I agree with most of the staff report. Got a couple of issues that I'd like to talk about. This is an application for a zone change in reserve acreage. This has also been coming on for quite a few number of years. And what we are attempting to do is create two parcels that are consistent with the GLUP designations. So we've got a urban residential that was zoned SFR10, and then we've got a commercial that we're requesting community commercial. It meets the criteria for those zones, and on the planning units, you're required to have zoning to do a partition of this size. So now we have already zone changed the residential, we're doing the commercial now, and then we're asking for the partition. And the partition is two parcels of reserve acreage. And those pieces, after final plat, creates the two lots, but they will be subject to another review. There's no development that can happen on these prior to either a site plan review or a land division. And that is where the reserve acreage portions of the code says there's no improvements, there's no dedication requirements. It happens at a later time. And I'm perfectly fine with Public Works deed restriction that would be recorded with the final plat that says that parcel 2, the large residential parcel, will be developed with a storm system that will also serve parcel 1. It's identified as a regional storm facility, but it'll only be serving these two parcels. And drainage works out that way too, because the property slopes from southwest to northeast. The concern I have is Exhibit M, which is the fire report. They do not have the authority to apply deed restrictions or conditions of approval. They are saying you shall record a deed restriction with this land use action. And I say they don't have the authority to do that, and the city will get an opportunity to resolve or to review access standards for future development. And so I would request that if this goes to an approval, I would remove that condition for a deed restriction from the fire department on this application. We had neighbor concerns. This is not a surprise. This is one of the planning units, part of the urban growth boundary expansion that has been going on for 20, 25 years. There's been several public hearings on this. The urbanization plan was approved with these general land use plan designations. And there's been probably, I think it's been 3, this is the 4th public hearing talking about this property. So I understand their concerns, but these decisions have been made in the past, and we're complying with those decisions. And all we're doing today is perfecting the zoning, and we are requesting the partition to break it into those 2 designations. I want to draw your attention here to the lower right-hand corner. That exhibit, the zone change actually, and the exhibit right above it, the tentative plat, there is a property line proposed that goes right across the panhandle of Idaho there. And the portion, the small square north of parcel 1, that is actually part of the residential zone. It's already been zoned. So it's just a issue that I'd like to point out. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do any commissioners have questions of the applicant? Yes, Commissioner McKechnie.
So, Scott, just to be clear then, the image we're seeing in the lower right-hand corner is not correct, that the little panhandle that you called it is actually already zoned SFR 10.
Correct.
Okay. And I realize it's not a part of this, but just to clarify, on the lower left-hand side, we've got a whole bunch of green area shown, and that is reserved, or essentially to be
Open space.
open space
Right.
abutting the existing development to the north.
Yes, so this planning unit had a requirement for 29% open space net of internal rights-of-way. So we were able to deduct the area of our internal rights-of-way, and then we have a open space requirement of 29% of that. And because this whole, I did the urbanization plan for this, and I've represented other clients on land division application already. But because of the slope of this property, we decided to use the bulk of our open space on the north property line. It can be used as a buffer between the existing development, and then it also is where storm drainage goes. And then we also put a buffer or an open space on either side of the canal.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the applicant? Oh, yeah, Commissioner Besco.
Scott, I'm still trying to understand the issue that you're having with the fire department requirement. If I understand it right, the property is all owned by one person or one party.
Correct.
Right now. And you're saying that there's going to come back in for another review down the road when they do actually decide to develop. But I think if I understand correctly, what the fire department's concern is that when they do come in for development, they may not be owned by the same people.
Correct.
And you're not going to be able to get the secondary access that they're wanting.
That is to be determined. We don't know that.
Right,
Yeah.
but we may lose that opportunity down the road. Is that correct?
I don't think you will lose the opportunity.
Okay.
So the fire has a standard under state fire code, that says that if a property is over a certain size, you must have 2 access points, and there's a diagonal measurement. I don't understand all of the details, but the concern is that there would not be the availability to get 2 accesses because these are higher order streets, and there are limitations to how access standards for arterials and collectors. But I'm certainly not convinced that those conditions can't be met as standalone individual parcels under different ownership.
Okay, if I just heard what you just said, what you're saying is that there's a potential that the Public Works Department will be forced to grant an access out on the south stage when they really don't want to. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I'm saying it's to be determined and it'll be reviewed. I believe the intersection spacing on an arterial is probably 350 feet, and I believe our commercial piece is over 350 feet. And then the other statement that fire department was wanting to make a condition, a deed restriction, was if 2 public access points cannot be provided in the development of the site, that if 2 public access points cannot be provided, development of the site will be limited to the number of units in the building height. So there's a big mess down over here now. But there are multiple opportunities that access standards can be resolved. And I don't think we need a deed restriction from the fire department that does not have the authority to apply deed restrictions or code requirements. The reserve acreage language in the Medford Land Development Code does not have the requirements or the conditions that the fire department is trying to impose.
Yeah. So there's a discretionary condition.
I suppose it could be a discretionary condition. I don't think it should be a condition.
Period. Okay, thank you.
But you don't have a problem with the deed restriction requiring the stormwater
Correct.
line on the other one?
Correct.
Okay. Any other commissioners have questions of the applicant?
Like to reserve time for rebuttal and request your approval.
Thank you.
Without the fire conditions.
All right. Are there persons in the audience that have come to speak regarding this application? If you are, please come forward, sign in legibly, give us your name and your address, and provide your testimony. Seeing no one, yes, come forward. And you can sign in the book after you testify if you'd like. Just give us your name and your address, please.
My name is David Allen. I'm at 1725 South Stage Road. I live on the south side of South Stage, across from this development. I'm trying to gain as much information as I can about this scenario. And I'm feeling a little bit inadequate because I don't understand a lot of the language. But maybe one question I do have is how the development of the road might happen. With the previous land zone that was done, I think in 2023, I feel like this rezoning, and again, you're going to have to teach me on if this is true, is making it a smaller land development that will be easier to develop, maybe with less cost, where the previous one maybe is going to develop the whole roadway and full access of public water maybe across South Stage. So trying to understand it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yep. Got it. Yeah, I don't think that there's going to be any development right away, and the roads, will ask rebuttal to touch on that if you could. And then, I think that was it.
Also on the road development, I'm assuming that moves into the zone area, not to the north or to the south of South Stage or to the west of Orchard Home. So does all of the road development happen?
It would be only on their side of the road.
Right. And would that create a bend or a curve in South Stage Road?
It's too early to understand what it would do.
Okay.
That would be a future, when they develop, that would be something that would have to be in their plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Please sign in with your name, address. Yeah. Mike?
Sorry, thanks.
Commissioner McKechnie?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe you'd like to explain how development typically goes on a major roadway? Just-
I'll do my bestest, because South Stage is a little bit special, and I might actually have to ask for help, because when the city expanded the urban growth boundary, we took all of the right-of-way. So I think the whole roadway will end up being improved and not just half plus like we would, like
Oh.
Orchard Home will be half plus 12 or, to the far edge of pavement, depending on the condition. But South Stage, I think we improve the entire right-of-way because it's all in the city.
But it
And-
would only go to the current edge of the right-of-way, not expand south, because all that property is outside the city, right?
Thank you.
Oh.
I think I know the answer. I'll see
Didn't
if
mean
I'm
to
right.
to stir up a hornet's
Mr.
nest
Burrows.
here, but I think we could all appreciate the understanding.
Good evening, Chair and fellow Commissioners. I'm Doug Burrows with the Public Works Department. Very good question, David, right? Yeah, thank you for coming tonight. Yeah, so I think you're right, Mr. McKinney. South Stage Road, so the south right-of-way line will not move, it just won't. So when these properties develop, all the right-of-way we need to get our standard width will all come from their side. So, and they'll have to do their improvement, and I'm sorry off the top of my head, I don't remember what that is, if it's half plus 12, or if it might be full width, curb to curb, because you're right, the other side's outside the city. It's not planned to be in the city anytime soon. It's not an urban reserve area, it's just the county. So, so yeah, it'll all happen on the other side. I mean, there'll be a transition, from the unimproved part of South Stage to the improved part with curb gutter, but it will be gradual and not a big deal. And we've got plenty of other developments along South Stage coming in that will do the same thing, essentially.
And that's what would you say, a minor collector?
The minor arterial.
Minor arterial.
Yeah.
So
South Stage,
that
minor
is-
arterial. Yeah.
That's really becomes a city project, correct?
No,
Paid for
it'll
by
it'll be
STC.
required with development frontage. They'll get STC credits for the construction and dedication for that.
Oh, I see, okay,
Could be a city project, but probably not here.
okay.
Anything else?
No?
Commissioner Pulver.
So just to clarify, the improvements to any of the adjacent roads will occur consistent with when the development actually happens. So when something is going vertical on
Yes.
whatever the designated parcel is, that's when those roadway improvements will happen.
Well, not just vertical. I mean, if these weren't two reserve acreage parcels in the land partition, they would be required to
If they
develop
have
it.
just regular zoning, no,
Land divisions require improvements,
okay,
even partitions.
okay, so if they
But
weren't
like I said, the
reserved-
reserve acreage, so they don't. It kind of kicks the can down the road. So if the residential comes in later for a LDS, a land division, a subdivision, that will be a condition, is that they do their street improvements, not just the internal ones, but the ones along South Stage or Orchard Home Drive. And then with the commercial piece, same thing. If that develops, they'll be required to do their frontage improvements. Dedication, PUE improvements, all that stuff.
And then Mr. Allen asked about water. I don't want to speculate, but my
I
assumption.
love water.
Yeah, you and me both.
I think we should all drink more, but I can't speak to water. I haven't even read their conditions. I assume water will be going down South Stage at some point.
But as far as, if somebody connecting on the south side.
Oh, availability on the south side.
Yeah.
I cannot speak to that whatsoever. Yeah, sorry.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Besco.
Oh, Mr. Besco.
But I have you up there, Doug. I was just wanted to follow up on my question to Scott. Is that if a commercial development came in on the commercial property there, would Public Works, entertain, or do you see them getting an access out onto South Stage Road?
The first answer is no. The code would say if you have access to a low order street, which per the circulation plan, it will, then you don't get an access on an arterial. If you have to get an access on an arterial, it has to be 250 feet from the intersection, minimum.
Okay.
So, but that's like if you don't have any other choice. And so that could be the rub on this one is there is a planned lower order street going through this property. It's right there on the urbanization plan map. So by code, the code would say you don't get an access on an arterial street.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions of Mr. Burrows? David, did we answer your question? A little bit, okay.
I think also I would like to know what's the requirement or the criteria for the road development? I'm a little bit curious about that as well.
I could
Yep.
feel free to talk to you afterwards if you want. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, any other questions on this? Applicant has, any other members of the audience that came to speak on this application would like to come forward and speak? All right, seeing nobody come forward, is there anyone on Zoom? Kaylee, is there anyone on Zoom? Okay. All right, does staff have any additional comments? Does the commission have any additional questions of staff or council? Yes, Commissioner Pulver.
Yeah, I guess I wanted council to weigh in. Mr. Center is testifying about the authority of, I guess, staff and/or this body to impose this condition, and I guess I was curious his thoughts on authority.
That's to you.
There is no provision.
Again.
There is no provision in the. Okay, got it. There is no provision in the code that mandates the deed restriction that the fire marshal is asking for.
So he doesn't have the authority to impose a deed restriction.
In other words, yes.
Got it.
May I ask a follow-up question? Do we, as this body, have the authority to take that recommendation from essentially a subject matter expert and impose that condition?
I'll tackle that if I might, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I
please.
see. So it's an interesting request from fire. I think it's early. I think it's premature, to be honest. This is a kind of a condition that we would normally see when we see a development application, so we can then understand how access and fire protection is going to actually work. I understand, as I said before, I understand what a fire marshal is trying to accomplish here and let folks know that there may be an issue in the future, but then again, there may not be an issue in the future. It really is just not quite ripe. So, so Mr. Severs put on the screen discretionary language, condition language that we had shared with Mr. Sinner earlier. If you choose to do that, we need to do a little explaining about how that's okay. If you choose to not do that and then to strike the condition that is crafted already in the report, we'll need to delete, I think it's condition 4 that refers to Exhibit M in the report. Is that right, Dustin? I think it's condition number 4. Let's double check real quick. What's in fire's report is not just a deed restriction, it's also a requirement for a physical improvement, which planning staff, and we did talk with Fire Marshal Farrington about the language that's on the screen. He was okay with the language that's on the screen. The physical improvement is actually prohibited under 10.202. I think it is under the subdivision standard. We can't require physical improvements. So it would be striking condition number 4, which is the applying the conditions from the fire department.
That help?
That was super not helpful.
No, it was helpful. I guess my only remaining question is, if we do not impose the discretionary condition of the deed restriction, and down the line, if we approve the other items that are part of the application tonight, and that parcel is sold and somebody else holds it, and now we find ourselves in the down the road situation, is it still just based on the code as it is, they won't be able to develop beyond a certain point anyway because of the access structure as it exists?
So based on Mr. Burrows' testimony a little bit ago, I think there's 2 things to consider. One, we know that there is a street that's that the approved urbanization plan requires to extend across the property. We also know that we've seen, in fact, we saw one at our Site Plan Architectural Commission last week where the applicant conducted a traffic analysis to, that supported the addition of a driveway onto a higher order street. So is it an impossible thing to do? No. Is it impossible to answer the question now? Absolutely it is. So I do think it's just not ripe. And I understand, again, what he's trying to accomplish, let people know that there may be a problem, but then again, there may not.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just for the body, I did have a chance to speak with Dustin a little bit earlier, more on the stormwater, but then he brought up, Tanner's concern about the deed restriction. And because it's going to be reserve acreage, they've got to come back to planning. We get a second and maybe a third bite at the apple to be able to put some restrictions in or, create the code. So right now, I agree that it may be premature to add that kind of restriction. Now, the restriction for the pond, the stormwater, that's absolutely needed because there's no way you can develop one without having that stormwater on two. So, all right, are there any other questions of staff or council? All right, would the applicant wish to use the rebuttal time? Okay, all right, we will close public hearing, and is there a motion for consideration?
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the applicant's findings and approve LDP-26-185 and ZC-26-184 per the staff report dated August 6, 2026, including Exhibits A1 through Q, including Exhibit K1 replacing Exhibit K. Remove the EA overlay over zone change area pursuant to MLDC 10.360 sub 3. And let's see, how can we word this? To strike condition 4 but not adopt the discretionary condition? Is that sufficient just to say? Or from Exhibit M, or is that enough clarity?
I think striking condition 4 and then, I think that's sufficient, yes.
Fantastic. As stated.
Okay, perfect. All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on this motion? Yes, Commissioner Bennett.
I'm going to vote yes, but I do want to explain that I don't want to not allow the discretionary condition proposed by the fire department because they don't have authority to propose it. I just agree with, I believe, city staff's assessment that it is not ripe at this time. And otherwise, I will be voting yes.
Very good. Any other discussion on the motion?
So
Commissioner
let me comment on the same thing. I believe that the fire code does have, I happen to agree with the motion as presented, but I also think that the fire code has more teeth in it when it comes to development to take care of this, and this discretionary condition is really not needed.
Got it. All right, any other discussion on them? Yes, Commissioner Besco.
And I just wanted to say I was leaning toward maintaining that discussion, but after the discussion we've had, I'll be voting yes.
Got it. Any other discussion? Kaylee, could we have a roll call, please?
Mark McKechnie,
Yes.
Jeff Thomas,
Yes.
Rachel Bennett,
Yes?
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Larry Besco,
Yes.
Marcy Pierce,
Yes.
EJ McManus,
Yes.
Dave Culberson.
Yes.
We have 8 yeses.
All right, motion passes. Good luck with your project. Or reserve acreage, because you don't get to do anything with your project. All right, item 50.3, CUP-26-215. Consideration of a proposal to allow Spartan Boxing to operate at 710 Ross Anley Drive within the heavy industrial zoning district on a single parcel, approximately 0.9 net acres in size. The applicant is Troy Wachowski? Yes. Good, I got it right. And the planner is Dustin Severs. Does any commission member have any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts to disclose? All right. Does anyone in the audience wish to question the commission on ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest? All right, could we have a staff report, please?
Yep, thank you. Dustin Severs again, the planning department, and next up is a conditional use permit for Spartan Boxing. The criteria for a CUP are upon section 10.1843 of the Land Development Code, excluding your staff reports. I'll begin by the project summary. It's a super fast presentation. Again, I just threw it together right before the meeting, so it's quite short. So the site consists of a single parcel that is not the correct size. It's not near 24.5 acres. The zoning is heavy commercial. The zoning is heavy commercial. There's the airport area concern overlay applied, which much of the city is within that overlay. And the proposal is to relocate the Spartan Boxing Gym. They're currently located at 729 Welch Street, and they're looking to move to the subject property, which is zoned industrial. And I'll explain to you what the issue is. So, unfortunately, how our code, we go by the standard industrial classification, which is established through the Department of Labor. So, per the classification, gym type of use is a conditional use permit in the heavy industrial zone. Perhaps a little bit outdated. I know a lot of gyms, particularly like CrossFit, they prefer to go to warehouses and industrial areas. But the way the code is currently written, it's not allowed unless you do a conditional use permit. So that's what brings them here today. So again, as an existing business, there's somebody looking to relocate to this building, which is a multi-tenant building. I believe the other half is occupied by another business, which is industrial. So they're just looking to relocate to this new spot. So I'll move on to, we asked you to adopt the, let me back up. There's no special conditions that we're requesting that you apply to this conditional use permit. So we're asking you adopt the applicant's finding as recommended by staff, and we ask you adopt the final order for approval of CUP 26-215, that's per the staff report, August 6, 2026, and includes exhibits A through F. We do have the applicant, the applicant and his agent is here today if you have any questions about how their operations work. And again, we ask that you adopt their findings.
All right.
With that, thank you.
Does anyone on the commission have questions? Commissioner Besco first.
Dustin, I was just going to ask, I see there's 3 addresses in the building. And I was just curious about how many parking space the boxing club would need versus what are dedicated to the other 2 addresses. Is that not an issue here?
Yeah, the business, when they come to their business license, that time is when we look at parking. So I believe you addressed that in his findings, but yeah, we'll make sure that before we issue a business license that they have adequate parking. If they don't, they have to come up with some kind of a shared agreement with the adjoining properties.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes, I had a question about the fire department's report and the occupancy load. I just want to verify, since there are multiple businesses occupying this sole building, and that it's limited to, I believe, 49 occupants of the building as a whole. Has that presented any concerns, if that is accurate?
Yeah, I'll defer to the applicant. They didn't specify the number of folks they usually have at their gym. So perhaps when they come and speak, we can see how many students they typically have.
It just means they would need to come run something through the building department to update that accordingly on balance with the other occupants of the entire building.
Sure.
So, okay, cool. Thank you.
All right.
The architects down here are stepping in for a second, if you don't
Fire
mind.
away.
It's 49 people per tenant,
Okay,
so
so 49,
49, 49, 49.
Okay.
Awesome.
what a deal.
Look at that. Who says architect? Heard you guys chattering down there. All right, any other questions of staff? All right, let's open the public hearing, and if the applicant or their agent would like to come forward and present or answer questions, get the grilling. Get a chance to spar with the planning commission. See what I did?
Say that again?
No, it's okay.
Good afternoon, Good afternoon, Council. My name is Gary Hill. I reside at 2670 Beverly Drive, Medford, Oregon, and I am here as an agent for Spartan Boxing. And so any questions that I could answer for you guys as far as what we're looking to do, or starting out with a little bit of the story of the reason we're looking to move is we've been at Welsh Drive for over 10 years, and we have a myriad of things that we're dealing with, but the number one thing is through, as you know, that side of town has seen a couple of unfortunate events over the past couple years. The most recent one being on June 2nd with the unfortunate demise of a young lady. And a lot of our kids keep seeing those sort of things. There's been a couple of drug raids and things. Anytime anyone runs from police officers, they happen to run down Wells Street to get to the railroad tracks to get away. And our kids happen to be in direct conflict with that, and we're doing our best to provide a uplifting and motivational side of things, and the less that they have to see of that, the better. We found this building, and the reason that it's been such a focus for us is because it's really close to Rogue X, and we do a lot of partnership with Rogue X. We have camps there, we do volleyball games, we actually rent the space for volleyball tournaments and things, and as the development of Rogue X happens, it gives us more access to running paths, pickleball, sand volleyball, and other things to help with the kids with the community. Talking with the owner of the property, she's been on board with us being there. We found this, what we call just basically a small hurdle as far as the zoning goes. And the reason it works so well for us is because everything's right there. It keeps us not too far away from our target and focus audience being McLaughlin Middle School, South Medford High School. And so we're not moving someplace far, far away to where we're trying to bus in kids or find a way that many of these kids are underprivileged and don't have a way of getting there. We're still within our means of getting them to a meaningful training and uplifting opportunity.
Okay.
So,
Perfect. Are there any questions of the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Pulver.
So could you talk a little bit about kind of hours of operation, number of people that are coming in, that sort of thing?
yes, sir. So generally, hours of operation start right about 3:30 in the afternoon, and it's right about the time actually that the other tenants of the building, because we did some focus on that, start taking off. We had the owner of the building do a survey with all of her tenants to make sure that we weren't going to be impeding or causing a problem. So there's 7, 8 parking spots right across the front side there. She said on average they use 2 of them. For the most part, we use about 5 to start out with, and then as things expand, it goes and it wraps around to where there's another 12 spaces down the side. And by the time that we're using those in our gyms anywhere close to full, it'll be past the time when our neighbors will be there. So we'll be shared parking, but off times with that.
What time do you usually close? I'm sorry, go ahead. What time do you usually close?
We're done by about 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So, operations pretty much from 3 o'clock until about 8 o'clock.
Got it. How many people do you usually have on site?
On site average, it's about 25 to 30. And that's a lot of that 30 actually is some of the parents sitting and watching the kids play or train and do things. And we know where before we had more because we had more space. We've already started paring down classes because we're going from a 5,000 square foot building to a 2,500 square foot building. So we've revamped the way the classes work, revamped the times and hours and the way it changes. So there's ample time for everyone to still get their training in, but we're not having to accommodate as many people at one time.
Excellent. Any other questions of the applicant?
I was just going to
Yeah,
ask,
Commissioner
and it can change obviously, but are your kids usually getting there via some sort of transportation, or are they walking, or what's?
Some would walk, but we have a van that we use, and we go and we pick up. So we have a 17-person van that we can go and stop at the different schools and pick kids up, and then go drop them off at designated drop-off areas as according to the parents and what we've agreed to with that. So,
Thank you, appreciate that.
yes, sir.
Any other questions of the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you wish to reserve some time for rebuttal if needed?
Yes, please.
Got it. All right. Are there any persons in the audience that have come to speak on this application? Please come forward. Not seeing anybody coming through. Are there any other persons in the audience? Is there anyone on Zoom? No one's on Zoom? Got it. Okay. Does anyone have staff have any additional comments? Sorry, tongue-tied. None, thank you. None? Okay. Does the commission have any additional questions of staff or council? Okay. Does the applicant wish to use your rebuttal time? You good? Okay. And we will close public hearing, and is there a motion for consideration?
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the findings as recommended by staff and adopt the final order for approval of CUP-26-215 per the staff report dated August 6, 2026, including Exhibits A through F.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Kaylee, can we have a roll call, please?
EJ McManus,
Yes.
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Marcy Pierce,
Yes.
Rachel Bennett,
Yes.
Mark McKechnie,
Yes.
Jeff Thomas,
Yes.
Larry Besco,
Yes.
Dave Culberson.
Yes.
We have 8 yeses.
All right, good luck with the project. All right, item 50.4, GLUP-26-203 and ZC-26-204. consideration of a general land use plan map amendment along with proposed zone changes for Cascade Christian High School in order to accommodate a future expansion of the school's facilities and uses. The subject property includes 9 contiguous parcels totaling approximately 13.26 acres. Table Rock fronts the property along its westerly boundary, and the western termini of Gilman Road is stubbed at its easterly boundary. The properties are zoned SFR 00, IL, and IG, and includes a restrictive zoning administrative mapping overlay over tax lot 1000. The property is adjacent to the Bear Creek and Lone Pine Creek. The requests are to amend the GLUP map designation from GI to Parks and Schools for lots 1,000, 4,600, 4,800, 4,900, 5,000, and 8,300, and corresponding zone changes for all 9 lots from IG, IL, and SFR 00 to MFR 30. The applicant is Grace Christian Schools. The agent is CSA Planning Limited and AKS Company, and the planner is Dustin Severs. Does any commissioner have conflict of interest or ex parte contacts to disclose? Commissioner Pulver.
So I don't know that this is a thing, but I did drive by the site today because I was kind of curious, and I guess we're supposed to say that maybe.
Yes. All right. Any other ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest? Does anybody in the audience wish to question the commission as to ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest? Seeing none, can we have a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. Dustin Severs again with the Planning Department. And the last item, we have the Grace Christian Schools, both a GLUP change and a zone change. We have a couple new exhibits we've forwarded over to you this afternoon. These are both neighbor letters. They'd be in the record as Exhibit U and Exhibit B. I'll be addressing some of the concerns included in those letters later in my presentation. Look at our legal requirements. So for the zone change criteria, we're looking at section 10.204 of the Land Development Code. And for GLUP changes, the Land Development Code redirects us to the Review and Amendments chapter of the Comprehensive Plan. That includes all the applicable statewide planning goals, and they're summarized on the screen here. The approving authority. So for zone changes, the Planning Commission is the final approving authority, and for the GLUP, this is a Type 4 application, so the ultimate decision is rendered by the City Council, which is scheduled. That meeting is scheduled for September 16th, 2026. This body forwards a recommendation. We did forward this over to the Department of Land Conservation and Development, and we didn't receive any written comments from them or any of the other interested private agencies. Look at our project summary. So the site consists of 9 parcels, which total approximately 13.2 acres. There's several streets, or one street is stubbed on its east side, and on the west side is Table Rock Road, and you can see I-5 is just to the south. Site's current general GLUP designations, we have general industrial for a large portion of it. Around the perimeter of it, which is really the issue here, is zoned for general industrial. And for the zoning, it is SFR 00, and then we also have IL and IG, that's light industrial and general industrial. There's a restricted zoning on the site, and the proposal is for both GLUP and zone changes. This is pretty much all the screen I have, so I'll try to explain it based on what you're seeing here. So for the conditional use permit was approved in 2009. So the conditional use permit encompasses what you see in the parks and school GLUP designation in the green here. So they were approved for a conditional use permit. The high school is actually to the southeast of here. So the conditional use permits have athletic facilities on the site. So with this request, they're looking to expand their facilities. Perhaps I'll let all of the applicants speak more specifically to that, but I think they're looking to add more facilities as far as perhaps additional track, something of that nature, sports related. In order to do so, they want to bring in these abutting properties, which are shown in the blue. The problem is that those are zone light industrial. So per the code, Schools are allowed as a conditional use permit in all of our zones with the exception of industrial zones. So in order to incorporate these surrounding parcels and then eventually bring it to the CUP, they have to change both the GLUP and the zoning. So the obvious change for the GLUP designation is parks and schools. It is a private school, but it doesn't matter that they are eligible to be brought in as parks and school. Now, the obvious zone change would be to change it to parks. The problem is, per the code, park zoning has to be publicly owned. And this is not, this is a private school. The good thing is the comprehensive plan, it says it's not limited to parks. So you could actually apply a different zoning. That clearly industrial doesn't work because it's not allowed. It doesn't allow schools with conditional use permits. That limits us to changing the zoning to single family, commercial, or multifamily. So they ultimately chose multifamily. It's kind of a Goldilocks situation with it comes down to traffic. So if they change the zoning, they want the traffic to be compatible. The amount of traffic that they would generate would be compatible with what they want to do out their future facilities. So if they were to change to the single family, the traffic would just be too low. While if they did it to commercial, it's probably going to require a traffic impact analysis, mitigation. It's just not necessary based on the amount of traffic their proposed uses will have. So they found a nice little sweet spot with the MFR 30. So they did a limited traffic study shows that a TIA is not required. However, it will get them a lot of trips to accommodate the future use of the property. So that begs the question, since it's zoned MFR 30, what stops them from doing apartments? They say that it's not their intent to do apartments. They're not proposing any changes to the conditional use permit with this. They're have to come in later and to modify the CUP when they're ready to do so. And they say that it is not their intent to do apartments residential there. So what prevents them from doing so is two things. One, they would have to change the GLUB designation. So current with an MFR 30 zoning and a parks GLUP designation, those are not compatible. So if they want to do apartments, first thing they have to do is ultimately get approval through city council. They come through you and they go through city council to change the GLUP designation to urban high density residential, which is compatible with an MFR 30. And then second, they would have to modify their conditional use permit. So again, the conditional use permit is currently it encompasses these 3 parcels in the green. So once they add all those, they have to modify that. And once they come up with plans on what they actually want to do in terms of uses, they will also have to modify that. If they did apartments, I'm not sure if that would really be compatible with the conditional use permit as is currently set out as for facilities for the school sports facilities. So that was one that I think the major is a legitimate concern that neighbor had is to some kind of assurances that apartments aren't going to be constructed out there. So I don't have a whole lot to provide you here. You're going to have to throw this together. They did address all the criteria for both the zone change and the GLUB designations, and the commission can find that those are all satisfied. So we ask that you adopt, or we review the applicant's findings and conclusions, and we recommend that you adopt the findings as submitted. And yeah, so we ask that you forward a favorable recommendation to City Council for the GLUB. And as a separate we're asking that you approve the zone change, and that's exhibits A through V. And with that, we do have the applicant's agent, CSA EKS, is here, so you can answer any questions, traffic, stormwater related items. I'll be punting over to Mr. Doug Burrows. With that, I can take questions. Thank you.
All right, does any commission member, Commissioner McKechnie?
I can wait for somebody else if they have a question, but,
Fire away.
so just let me understand clearly here that the reason that MFR 30 was selected is because the traffic count for, if that were developed as residential, will match pretty closely to what they're expecting to do as a school.
If they did multifamily residential, it would be compatible.
That's right,
Single
multifamily.
family would be too low.
Too low and
Commercial too high.
too high, and yeah, and well, but at the, I mean, it picks so that it matches. Is that
correct.
That's correct? That
Yeah.
that was really the ultimate rationale for selecting MFR 30.
Absolutely.
And whatever happens with a development, even if it were a multifamily project, they would never be able to have access onto Table Rock Road even though they abut it. Is that a,
Yeah, that's correct. If they got access to Low Order Street, and it wouldn't, yeah. It would be
so
similar to our
regardless,
last
everything is
application.
essentially Cottonwood Avenue and whatever the other two streets are the only access they're ever going to have.
That's
Beyond
correct.
Lonsdale.
There's also, I didn't mention, but there's considerable environmental constraints. So you have,
Yeah, there's
Bear
a-
Creek run through here, and you have Lone Pine to the north, you have 100-year floodplains, so they're really limited on what you actually do
Okay.
there.
All right, no, I think that clears it up. And the other thing is that as long as we're changing the GLUP to the schools, essentially, we're kind of tying their hands that basically all they could do is develop something for the school.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Pulver.
So Doug, you can start your engines because I'm asking a question for you too. But Dustin, I just wanted to make sure I heard you right, but I thought what I heard you say was that, and I guess I'm just questioning whether it's true or not, but that if they do anything different than kind of what they're doing in there, they have to come back and modify the CUP. I'm sure that's not totally true, but if it's anything substantial, they would have to.
Well, we have a minor revision they can do. If it's something very minor, we can review it and get it done administratively. If it's something more significant, it would have to come back before this body.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So Doug, my question for you is kind of along the lines of Mark's. I guess I just wanted, I think I understand maybe the rationale, but I'm more concerned that, you know, a traffic engineer or somebody agreed with the methodology that whatever intended uses there are consistent with maybe roughly, I mean, it's a different sort of use than any of those things, single family, multifamily, commercial. It's sort of a hybrid, presumably, depending on what they actually do there. But that you agree with the conclusion that MFR traffic counts are consistent with what they're intending.
Doug Burrows, Public Works, just for those wondering. Yeah, we do. Yeah, I think we do. Carl, reviewed this with Kim at Kim Parducci, who did the traffic analysis for them. I don't know for sure. I don't know what his number comparison is, and maybe the applicant can talk about that a little better than I can. But that was the intent. Yeah, there's several zonings they could pick, but my understanding is they tried to pick the one that is going to closely emulate what their actual use is going to be. So, like I said, I might punt to the applicant on that if he wants to dive into that more, but that is the intent. I think if something came in that they proposed something that was extremely higher, I think we would go, oh, well, we might need to look at that a little closer, but.
And we'd have the ability to do that,
Yeah,
even though it wouldn't be a zone change
yeah,
at that
we
juncture?
can look at things for safety reasons. We had a pre-app down at the other end of Gilman that came in and we're like, you're going to have to kind of look at that intersection and make sure that's going to work okay for what you want to do. So yes, the code has given us the ability to do that.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to throw stones, but the kind of explanation that if the traffic does justify mitigation or whatever else, like that's what it's there for. But in this case, we're kind of threading the needle to what works. So it just gives me a pause is all. That's the only reason I bring it up. So, but it's a unique use and a lot of things. So
It is a little different.
yeah.
I will give you that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions of staff? Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll open the public hearing and invite the applicant or their agent to come forward and speak on this project.
Good evening. My name is, hopefully that's not too loud.
Yep.
I'm either too far away or too close, I feel like. But my name is Nathan Emerson. I am a planner at CSA Planning, an AKS company, located here in Medford, Oregon at 4497 Pine Ridge Terrace. And I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Cassia Christian Schools. And so to address the main question I think that came up, which is the zoning, why we ended up where we're at. This kind of has a backstory. We were trying to figure out the best way to go about this for a while. We had conversations with staff about using the public park zoning. And as Dustin mentioned, in the public park zoning, you're supposed to be in a public entity. We think under the religious, I'm gonna quote this, hopefully it's right, the Religious Land Use and Institutional Persons Act, which is a federal act, you have an argument that a religious organization, which is essentially acting the same as a public one in this case, a private school versus a public school, has the right to that zoning. And we think we have a good case for that. However, as talking about the traffic, you start running into issues with the public park zoning. Public Works has rates that they publish for all the zones for average daily traffic per acre for most of them, except public parks. So when we started talking to Carl and the transportation manager about how to evaluate the traffic, like there's no established rate. So you have to go start looking at all the uses in the public park zone. And as soon as you start doing that, you start noticing that some of those uses are actually pretty intense. Like there's eateries in there, there's recreation facilities, there's all kinds of stuff. So once you start doing that, you start coming up with a conservative worst case scenario, and you end up with something like, I don't remember the number, but it's like way more trips than the established zoning already had. So using the public park zoning when you're evaluating facility adequacy is a problem. So then we started looking at, well, what other zones would allow this use, even if it's not an outright permitted use like in public parks, but as a conditional use. And then you go to the residential zones right next. And so the existing zoning has about 1,700 trips, I think, when you calculate using Public Works methodology, the number of trips you're going to expect every day. And so we're trying to land the plane and be as close to that as possible. And when you look at the existing zoning and how you would calculate the trips for that, you end up at MFR 30. So that's how we ended up there. We're really trying to match the trips from what's there now with the industrial mix and the SFR 00, and then what's expected with MFR 30. So you guys know, you probably talk about trips a lot as zone changes. You know, you don't want to lose trips if you don't have to. They're valuable. If they go away, like they can be hard to get back. So as part of the zone change, we wanted to keep it as close as possible. So that's why we ended up as MFR 30. As Dustin said, there's no plan to build apartments here. Cascade Christian is not going into the apartment building business. This is right next to their campus. It has their existing track. The point is to facilitate an expansion of those facilities and be able to expand the track and some other athletic facilities. So that's, I think, the general consensus about why we ended up at MFR 30. And I can speak to that more. I don't know if there are any other issues that you guys had questions about or want to discuss.
All right. Does anyone have questions of the applicant? No?
I apologize for being
Commissioner
sweaty.
Besko.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you, is the properties that are right now currently facing Cottonwood Avenue, are all the residents that are on there going to be taken out then?
I don't know exactly where the facilities. It depends on the final design, right, of the athletic facilities.
Mm-hmm.
That work isn't done yet. I've seen a previous one, which there was a pre-app for, I think last year. I don't know if you guys know that off the top of your head. But since then, they've had the opportunity to buy, I think, pretty much all those properties along Cottonwood, 4,600, 4,800, 4,900, 5,000, 5,100, or no, that was already on to 8,300. So now they're looking at evaluating if they can do more with that. I don't know where that's going to end up. The design hasn't been done at this point. So I'm not sure whether they're planning to keep them and use them as for school facilities, or whether they're planning on expanding the track in that area.
And then earlier you mentioned that you're going to be looking to expand the track. Is the track currently not regulation size?
I don't know that. I know that they want to expand it and they want to have a practice facility as well, like a practice field.
Okay.
And as soon as you start moving beyond 1,000 and 1,002, then you're looking at going into the industrial zone up to the north there, which then requires the zone change.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? All right. Reserve time for rebuttal?
Yes, I always forget that. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other persons in the audience that came to speak on this application? Please come forward if you have. All right. Seeing no one else come forward, is there no one's on Zoom? That's the third time I've asked, and just hoping somebody would materialize. Give me a job purpose. All right. Does any staff have any additional comments? No. Okay. Does commission have any additional questions of staff or council? Yes.
And I know that we're obviously focused on the subject properties, but with the and maybe I'm just looking at the bigger picture, knowing that area a little bit more, but since we don't have other abutting residential, if, you know, and again, I'm using a hypothetical, if, you know, if the Cascade, or I guess the property owner, were to dissolve, does this give precedence for some of the adjacent properties to also now use that MFR 30 to convert?
If I may, Mr. Chair, no, or Commissioner, it doesn't because of the GLUP designations. So it's that first, so we would have to go through the exercise of amending the comprehensive plan
Okay.
in order to make that happen.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Good question. All right, any other questions of staff or council? All right, do you wish to use your rebuttal time? Okay, we'll now close public hearing, and is there a motion for consideration? I think we're going to bifurcate it and do two different ones.
Yeah, do you want them to separately
please.
with a separate vote? Okay.
Yes, please.
All right, let's do the first one on, based on the findings and conclusions that all approval criteria are met or not applicable, I move that we forward a favorable recommendation to City Council for approval of GLUP-26-203.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let you do it next time.
Kaylee, you get to pick. Is there any discussion on the motion? Kaylee, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Marcy Pierce,
Yes.
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Larry Besco,
Yes.
Jeff Thomas.
Yes.
Mark McKechnie,
Yes.
EJ McManus,
Yes.
Rachel Bennett,
Yes.
David Culberson.
Yes.
We have 8 yeses.
All right. And please note to City Council that that was a unanimous vote for favorable. Could we please have the second motion, please?
Second motion, I move that we adopt the applicant's findings as recommended by staff and direct staff to prepare the final order for approval of ZC-26-204, including Exhibits A through V. Final order of approval shall become effective upon approval of GLUP-26-203, scheduled for September 16, 2026, before City Council.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Motion made in second. Any discussion on this motion? Yes, Commissioner Pulver.
So, I think as I raised, I guess I don't know, I have some, it's a weird neighborhood over there, it's GLUPed IL, it's really, you drive it and it's kind of like a residential neighborhood, except there's a few people that have redeveloped and built a couple warehouses here and there. I'm pretty familiar with sports facilities in general, and, obviously you want to spend your money on the facility itself, not things like parking and other things like that. And so I guess I have some sensitivity to the neighbors and those roads, Gilman and Losman, or Lonsdale, I can't remember which it is, Losman or Lonsdale. But I mean, they're like old county roads, so I think they're open ditch, no curb, gutter, sidewalk. And as much as we love kids, and I'm sure Cascade loves their kids, like kids do things and park in people's places and do different things. So I could see scenarios where their impact could be, less than desirable at times. So hopefully in their planning, they take in consideration that. But that said, I think it's a well-intended project, and so I'm optimistic that it will continue and the appropriate parties will get oversight and input as needed. So I'll be voting in favor.
Okay. Any other discussion? Commissioner McKay?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say I appreciated staff's explanation on how they arrived at MFR 30. I think that makes perfect sense. We've had some issues historically with bait and switch after zone change were made, and I know there's some sensitivity around that. So I am feeling real comfortable that even if I realize that their stated intention is not bait and switch, but if something happened and they had to switch, that the impact on the neighborhood would be no more than what would happen with the school. So I appreciate staff's explanation of that.
Perfect. Any other discussion on the motion? Kaylee, could we have a roll call, please?
Jeff Thomas,
Yes.
Rachel Bennett,
Yes.
Marcy Pierce,
Yes.
Jared Pulver,
Yes.
Larry Busco,
Yes.
Mark McKechnie,
Yes.
EJ McManus,
Yes.
David Culberson.
Yes.
We have 8 yeses.
All right. Good luck with your project. Moving on to item 60, presentations and reports. Transportation, Commissioner Pulver.
Yeah, I think I said something to offend somebody. We haven't met in a couple months.
All right. Good job. All right. Site plan and architecture, Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. So we reviewed a 508 unit apartment complex that's going to be over off of Owen, where a lot of that stuff's going. I think the interesting part about that whole project, which was, it was a lot to do in one meeting just because there was so much when you're doing a 508 unit apartment complex. There was a lot there, and I don't know how many buildings was it, Kelly, was it 13 buildings? It was a lot, but the outcome of that was because that application was before July 1st. So now moving forward, SPAC planning would have nothing to do with that. It's going to be all done by staff. And it kind of, I guess I'm becoming the old guy that says, get off my lawn, because what was great about the state of Oregon and great about our community was that, at least from my standpoint, input from the community is critical to building community. And what the state is moving towards is saying, we could care less what the input from the community is. We're going to do what we do. And maybe in the future, we're also going to go down the slippery slope where people actually don't have property rights and it's all owned by the state. And we all get to beg the state where we get to live and how we live. And I also think that we're going to be seeing a lot less commercial development, because I think the reason why a lot of folks, and I do the same thing as developer, would bring those applications forward is there's a lot of exceptions you can make. But now, if you don't have to have public input for anything that has to do with residential development, we're not even going to see very many of those unless somebody's truly building something commercial. So I think this is kind of a sad day for the state of Oregon, that a maverick state, which used to be all about public input, is no longer going to be that. So that's my speech, and I won't say anything more about it.
All right. Kelly, it's your show. We're just watching.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. I am Kelly Aiken with your Planning Department. So let's talk a little bit about the House bills and the Senate bills and what's happened over the last 2 sessions. So in 2025, Senate Bill 974 was adopted, and it did a couple different things. The primary thing that it did was it made residential zone changes, PUDs, and variances, or exceptions, we call them here, type 2s. So you cannot have a public hearing on those application types. The last session in 2026, House Bill 4037 came behind the Senate bill and said, not only are you not going to have public hearings, but on these type 2s, only the applicant has any appeal right. So type 2 is an administrative review with notice. So we still send notices to adjacent property owners. House Bill 4037 also severely limits it. Right now, our standard is 200 feet from the property, the subject site. For projects fewer than 20 units, it goes down to 100 feet. For 20 or more, it goes up to 500 feet. So that is significantly more than we currently notice. So the land use procedures are changing significantly. So I did a little bit of work last night to kind of see what that does to everybody's workloads. You'll recall a few years ago we made partitions type 2s. Partitions used to come to the Planning Commission, so now that's an administrative review. It's a director's decision. We also, a number of years ago, changed residential projects that were fewer than 30 units or fewer than 3 acres are type 2s. So we've already removed quite a bit of workload from our Site Plan Architectural Commission in that regard. What the significant change in the Senate Bill 974, removing zone changes, PUDs, and variances from this body. Just as an example, for Planning Commission, those equal about 35 or 40% of your workload. So your workload is going to change significantly. SPAC's workload, just based on the last 5 years of data, isn't going to change as significantly as I thought it would. They're doing quite a few commercial industrial projects still. It doesn't feel like as many. 2025, half of our site plans were residential and half of them were commercial industrial. So we're still seeing commercial stuff. I frankly am more concerned with your own workloads than for site plans. So that will be interesting. Under the statute, Planning Commission does have a statutory obligation to make recommendations on land use matters to your city council. So regardless of your other workload, you still have a responsibility to provide support to our city council on land use matters. So not sure how that's all going to shake out. I can tell you that there are a tremendous number of code sections in Chapter 10 that need to be amended in order to incorporate all of these decisions or the statutory regulations. Both bills became effective July 1, so we're now acting under those rules. We have 2 applications in right now that are residential that will be processed as type 2s. One is, it's a subdivision, I can't remember how many lots it is. But there are 2 that are moving through the process now that have been submitted since July 1, so we'll be acting under those new rules. So there's that. We are going to discuss this, the code changes that are coming very soon to a hearing near you. We're going to include that on our joint session with City Council on September the 30th. So, you know, we had a list of things that we were going to discuss with you 2 together. That list has shrunk considerably because the impacts of those 2 bits of legislation are really big, and we want to make sure that everybody understands it kind of all at the same time, so you all know what's coming. It's going to be a huge undertaking, so our long rangers are working very diligently to make sure that we understand what may and shall actually mean, because both those sections, both the bills used may instead of shall, but they're interpreting it as shall instead of may. I don't know. So those are the kind of things we're working with Alan on to figure out what they actually meant versus what they said. So anyways, so back to my regular report, unless you have questions on that good stuff.
Yeah, who wants to go first?
Yeah.
Commissioner Pierce.
So forgive my ignorance on these 2 bills. Do you know what the driving factor was for eliminating the public hearing portion?
So I think the idea is to just speed things up. I think that's the whole concept behind it, is just to help things move along more quickly. I don't know if it will actually help or not. And you know, it's a statewide bill. So I mean, how we function in Medford, I think we do a pretty good job of managing the 120, getting our building permit reviews done and all those things. I think we're pretty good at that, but not everybody is. So I don't know if there was a particular project that was, you know, the squeaky wheel kind of a thing, or if it's just generally we think that we could do better under our land use program.
All right, Commissioner Bennett.
I don't know if it's too soon to tell, but based on this shift of labor to the city versus the commission, especially with the noticing requirements, do you anticipate needing additional staff, requesting that as part of the budget coming up?
Yes.
Okay, good to know, thanks.
Yeah. I think there's kind of a general thought that just because we don't have a public hearing that it's not as much work to do. I think it's actually more work because we don't have the ability to come to a thing like, you know, this kind of a situation and go, oh, wow, I forgot to add, or I didn't think about, or there's a horrible typo on this page and now it's all public. So I mean, whatever it is, so we've lost that opportunity. So I think it's actually a greater burden on staff.
Okay, rest of your report?
The rest of the report, on that happy note, so a few things. You may have noticed that Mr. Roenfeld has been absent for a bit. Today is his birthday, And I wanted to wish him a happy birthday. He's been out of commission for a while, and hopefully he's on the mend. So I wanted to acknowledge him today. For your regular business, we do have business scheduled for your next 3 meetings. So that's August 27, September 10, and September 24. At City Council, up next week is that code amendment for appeals I've talked to you about, so we can have special meetings for appeals if needed. Which brings me, I'm going to go back just a little bit. One of the things that we need to think about for the type 2s, all the appeals that may or may not come to pass. Right now, the Planning Commission is the appeal body for, I think it's partitions, and it may be one other type 2, I can't remember. But look for, I would assume that as part of the policy discussion that you may be our type 2 appeal body. So know that that may be coming to you as well.
Kelly, this will probably come back to you, but I was in a meeting this morning involving the planning director and some others, and the question was raised about appeals and kind of what that would allow or wouldn't allow. Like, so anyway, just wanted more heads that knew what they were talking about to be aware of that, because I think that's an interesting question.
It is. So House Bill 4037 addresses that, and it says that you can either have an appeal on the record, which is typically how we do type 3 appeals, the ones that go up to City Council, or you can have a de novo, which means it's new. So you actually have the hearing at the appeal, and anybody can add new information or whatever, it's not on the record. So I think our preference for type 2s will be de novo. I think it's easier for the appeal body to have a de novo hearing than it is to, oh, you didn't say that below, so you don't get to bring that up now. I think it's an easier thing, especially for type 2. So that'll be interesting. Another policy choice.
Any other questions, Kelly?
So,
on your
Kelly, the only
agenda.
question I have is, so like, you're talking about our business moving into September. I assume because those were all under before applications were submitted before July 1st, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so because I would assume moving into the new year, there's going to be a whole lot less business, correct? Okay.
Even before the new year.
We're starting to get to the end of those. And then I guess the other question, sorry, would be if an application wanted to change to the new rules, like right now, could they pull it and change it?
They'd have to withdraw and reapply.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Pulver.
So I don't know if this is where we're going, but since you asked about another question, I do. So the thing we saw at study session on Monday, the architectural standards for downtown, I guess I think that's one of those topics where I guess whether I agree with it or not, I'd be curious of council's opinions or positions on some of that stuff. So whether that needs to be brought up at the study session, or if we even have time to do that at the joint study session, but I think that would be good, because I might be the lone wolf on this, but like, I don't want to be banging my fist on the dais if they're like, we want this, or
Sure.
whatever. So
Sure. So I think for staff's perspective, there's 3 things on the agenda. 1 is the downtown, 2 is data centers, and then 3 would be the House Bill, Senate Bill discussion.
thank you.
All right, more to add?
I don't think, one other thing I did want to mention. So we had a historic meeting, or historic commission meeting last week, and the Kid Time, Oregon Children's, OCCL, Children, I can't remember what that stands for, is moving to the Medford Mail Tribune building, which is really great. It's a great use of that, or reuse of that building. So the physical change is they're adding a door and a window to the alley side, but there's a parking lot on the north side on 5th at Fur, and that's going to be some outdoor classrooms. So a really great reuse of that facility. I just want to mention that's been vacant for a while now.
But they're just expanding to that, or they're actually literally moving?
So they're moving, I think, the classroom space is what they're doing. Yeah, so I think the museum will stay in the Carnegie. What it does do is, because there was a lot of discussion about constructing a new building on the Carnegie site, and that pulls that off the table. So they're moving to the Tribune building.
Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Bennett?
Just wanted to check, I know you said we have business for our next 3 scheduled meetings. Do we have a study session at the end of this month?
I did not see anything on our next two study sessions, so it's September 14 and 21. We may add something. There's so much happening right now with all these code changes that Carly may have something to add.
Okay.
I kind of don't think so, because I think we're going to be focused on the 30th.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Kelly? All right, so item 70, I have no messages or papers from the chair. Item 80, city attorney.
No messages.
All right, item 90, propositions and remarks from the commission. Seeing none, adjourned. We're out.